I call this meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland to order. I'm Dudley Thompson, and I have the honor to serve as president of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Founded in 1908, we're the third established club of some 36,000 Rotary clubs in over 200 countries around the world. We're a diverse community of some 270 local business, professional, and community leaders who unite to improve local and international communities through a common commitment of service above self. If you're a visitor, for over 113 years, we've welcomed Rotarians and guests to our club meetings, and I welcome you to this, our 5,384th meeting. If you're a visiting Rotarian or the guest of a Rotarian, please enter your name in the chat box, which is located in the bottom center of the screen, so that we can recognize you in a few minutes. We recommend that you view today's meeting using Speaker View located in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. If you have comments or want to ask a question of the speaker, please use the chat box. Davey Warner, can you share with us a thought for the day?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I've been in the outdoor industry my entire career and used a lot of quotes, and I wanted to share one of my favorites. It puts an outdoor spin on a way to approach life. Live each day as you would climb a mountain. An occasional glance towards the summit puts the goal in mind. Many beautiful scenes can be observed from each new vantage point. Climb steadily, slowly, enjoy each passing moment, and the view from the summit will serve as a fitting climax to the journey. That's Joe Perchino.
Thank you, Davey. And for those of you out there, you may not know Davey yet. He'll be joining the club in a couple weeks. Welcome, Davey. Peter, can you put up the Rotary International Vision Statement so that we can share it together? Will you please share this statement with me? Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Thank you. A couple notes before we get started. First of all, we do not have a meeting next week, neither in person nor on Zoom. We'll take a break as we prepare for our gala that evening. Today, we will welcome Robert Kenny as a new member. We'll also hear upcoming plans from our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We're going to auction off a week at a villa in Italy, in Tuscany. And we'll also hear from Professor Thomas Graham about the crisis in the Ukraine. A note about the Ukraine, you'll recall that about a month ago, we received a $10,000 gift toward the Rotary Foundation's Ukraine Relief Fund. It was a challenge to our club to match the gift. The person has since added $5,000 to the challenge, and I'd like to share that we have more than met the challenge and will be sending over $30,000 to the fund. I put a PDF in the chat, and if you want to see a little bit about the Rotary Foundation Ukraine Relief Fund, you can see it there. Ed Jellen, are you out there? Do we have any visiting Rotarians today?
Hello, President Dudley. Here I am back on Oakland Rotary TV to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians. Starting with visiting Rotarians, we're always happy to welcome Dianne Dorn, who's past president of the Rotary Club of San Leandro. Dianne, always nice to have you with us. And let's see, Ruth Stroup brought her GlenFriends neighbors with her today. So welcome to all the GlenFriends, and Ruth, thank you for inviting them. And then finally, Keri Butkevich has invited her husband, Nickolai, to be with us. So we welcome Nickolai. And that's the lineup for today, President Dudley.
Thank you, Ed. Please leave that television on and watch the rest of the show here. Actually, past district governor and past president, Ed Jellen. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, David Stein does have a guest who just chimed in. So we want to welcome Dan Walters. guest of David Stein.
Thank you. Sarah Chavez Yao, would you introduce our newest member?
Yeah, thank you, President Dudley. I'm honored to introduce to you the newest member of Oakland Rotary, Robert Kinney. Robert lives in East Oakland with his wife, Michelle, and 2 kids, Mackenzie, who's 17, and Robert, who they call RJ, who's 14. Robert is Senior Vice President of Regulatory and External Affairs at PG&E, where he's responsible for strategic guidance of regulatory affairs, local governmental affairs, and community relations. He was previously chairman of the Missouri Public Service Commission. Robert holds a BA in political science from Hampton University, go Pirates, and a JD from St. Louis University School of Law. When he's not working, he enjoys watching movies with his family, playing tennis casually, not competitively, and bike riding. Welcome, Robert.
Welcome, Robert. You know, Robert, it's always difficult when we have to induct somebody on Zoom, and we hope we get you to the ballroom real soon, because right now we'd all be standing up and giving you a standing ovation because we're so glad that you've chosen to join us. Please know that your family and your friends are always welcome to join us and to participate in our projects and our events. By choosing to join us, you've accepted the Rotary vision, and you've also agreed to conduct your affairs according to the 4-way test. In your packet, when you come to the ballroom, there's a copy of it, and you'll receive a framed copy of the 4-way test as well. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? You'll also receive your red badge indicating your new member status. There will be a club book that will give you basic information, and also a book about the history of Oakland Rotary, along with a roster of your new 270 best friends. You'll receive your Rotary pin, which is a symbol, a little bit like mine, that identifies you as a Rotarian, and I hope you'll wear it with pride. Your commitment is to attend meetings, participate in service activities, practice service above self, and contribute to the Rotary Foundation and the Oakland Rotary Endowment. It's my pleasure and my privilege to induct you as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Oakland. If people just kind of wave their hands and welcome Robert here, we just want you to know how happy we are. And many of you may recall that Robert spoke to our club. He was the guest speaker. I believe it was in August or September last year. And so we really welcome you to the club, Robert.
Thank you very, very much. I'm honored and privileged to join, and I'm just very thrilled, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week at the gala as well.
Great. Celeste Gordon, are you out there?
Yes, we'll have to push the agenda item forward for now.
Okay, I will. I'm going to put Keri Hamill. Can we talk a little bit about the gala?
Okay.
And hopefully Viva will be here in time.
Yes,
Otherwise, we'll need to do it at the end of the meeting.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay. Keri, are you there? Can you tell us a little bit about the gala coming up?
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you and see you.
So
You look great.
Thank
Look
you.
like you're ready for a gala.
Not quite. I'm going to be even fancier next week.
What is it?
So what are you?
First of all, tell me about the dress. I don't know if you're going to say that. It's glam. Tell me about the dress, because I know
It's
people.
grateful glam.
Okay.
And if you don't know what that means, then that means that you can take some liberties in deciding. I mean, some of us will be dressed up very, very fancy. We want everybody to be, looking gala ready. But, you can take some liberties with your outfits. It's untraditional.
So but kind of basic. It'd be business dress up business attire and cocktail attire. Is that
Business and fancier.
okay? Good. I'm wearing my tux, so
Okay, okay, great. Oh, can't wait for that. Okay, can I start?
Please.
Okay, so what are you in the mood for this afternoon, Rotarians? Are you in the mood for a week in New York City? Are you in the mood for a luxurious week in Kauai, Hawaii with 5 of your best friends? How about a private dinner served for you and 7 of your best friends by the county's top law enforcement and justice official? To bring these and other fabulous possible experiences into your life, I'm asking that you spend a mere $100 today to score a best of live raffle tickets for yourself. We're going to be doing a best of live auction at next Thursday's gala. And it's a very exclusive world, the best of live. We're only selling 100 tickets for this event. And if your ticket gets sold, you will be able to choose from 10 experiences that fellow Rotarians and friends of the Rotary have offered to us for this year. They're amazing, and they're on the website, on the face of the website, if you click on, if you want to hear more than the 3 that I just outlined. So anyway, if you're interested in buying a $100 best of live ticket, put your name in the chat box and your telephone number, and you'll be called after the meeting, and your billing details and your ticket number and all those kinds of things will be sorted out then. We're also selling $50 tickets today for our fine wine auction. So specify if you want one of those tickets as well. And we'll see everybody next week at the gala at Sequoia Country Club.
Thank you, Keri. So we're going to be doing a lot of live auctions at the gala, but we have one today. So behind me, if you can see it a little bit, there we go, is a 6-bedroom villa in Tuscany, Italy. It's on, let's see, what did I see? It was on like several acres of olive grove. It's 6 bedrooms. It includes a gym, pool, outdoor sitting space. Anna Cretton, a member of our club, she's and some friends are going to be there. And they have 2 extra bedrooms. They're private rooms. There's housekeeping here every day. There's a kitchen. It's really right next to where the movie Under the Tuscan Sun was filmed. And the reason we're auctioning it today is they have the villa. It's the end of May from the 23rd to the 30th. So it's not something we could hold off an auction. It came up. I know that I looked it up. If you were to go and rent this villa, it would be $1,500 a day for the villa. If you divided that up to the 2 bedrooms that are available that we're auctioning right now, that would be $3,500 for the week. So I tell you, this is going to be a great deal if you ever want to go to Italy and Frankfurt, but if you have that week available at the end of May. So we're going to auction it here. I'm going to start it off at $1,000. $1,000, and what you'll need to do is I'm going to open up my chat here so I can watch, but if you'll put your name in chat, I'd really like to start this off at $1,000. Now it's May 23rd through the 30th. Boy, Under the Tuscan Sun, if you could, just think of romance. This is a wonderful experience. You just have to have the flexibility to get there next month. Okay, will anybody out there give me $1,000 for a week for 2 bedrooms in Tuscany? This all goes to the Oakland Rotary Endowment. Really hoping somebody out there.
Alita bid 1,200.
I'm sorry? Okay, Alita, okay, I have the name. Alita has bid $1,200. Do I have, let's go by 200s. Do I have $1,400? Can anybody get away for a week in Tuscany? Alita, you're going to love it. So I'm going to go once. I'm going to go twice. Alita Scola is going to Tuscany. Please give me the other bedroom. I will leave all of you for a week if you give me the bedroom. I'll find somebody to come. Okay, Alita, thank you so much.
Dudley,
Yes.
Dudley, this is Peter. We have a lot of interference coming from your microphone.
Okay.
Something's
Is
scratching.
that clearer? I was shuffling papers here with the.
Yeah,
Is that
keep
clear
going. I'll
now?
let you know.
Can
Keep
you
going.
hear me,
I'll let you
Peter?
know. Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Celeste, is Viva here yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Let me ask, did Thomas come back yet? Thomas was with us earlier and he was going to check in at 12:50 or so. So
I will email.
we may go back to the auction, Elita.
We asked him to come back at 12:53. Do you want me to email him and see if he can come back now?
Thomas,
Let's go. Let's go.
No, I'm
Let's
here.
go and do the announcements. Let's take care of some
Are
things.
you here, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Go
Are you-
ahead, David. Let's get started.
Dudley, it never surprised me. This time you're early instead of late.
Not a
Fellow
problem.
Rotarians and guests, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is the lead story in the news virtually every day. Our speaker today, Thomas Graham, is here to help us understand more deeply what is happening and why. One of the leading experts on Russia and Ukraine, Graham holds a BA in Russian Studies from Yale University and an MA in History and a PhD in Political Science from Harvard University. He co-founded the Russian, East European, and Eurasian Studies program at Yale University. During his 14 years as a Foreign Service officer, Graham twice served in the U.S. Embassy in Moscow and at the U.S. State Department developing U.S. policy on Russia. From 2004 to 2007, Mr. Graham served as on the National Security Council as a special assistant to the president and a senior director for Russia, managing the White House Kremlin strategic dialogue. Mr. Graham currently serves on many advisory boards and is a distinguished fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Please join me in giving a warm Rotary welcome. I suggest that you try the clapping reaction function on Zoom. Please give a warm Rotary welcome to Thomas Graham.
Thank you very much, David, for that introduction. And it is a real pleasure to be with all of you here today. What I want to touch upon in my remarks are four topics. First, the nature of the conflict, particularly in Moscow's eyes. Second, a question that we're asked all the time, why now? Third, an update on where we are in the conflict. And fourth, some thoughts about the ripple effects of this conflict as we look out over the next several months and beyond. So let me start with the nature of the conflict. Here in the United States and in Europe, I think it's clear that we see this as a war in Ukraine. From the Russian standpoint, it's not simply about Ukraine. It's about something much larger. It's about the whole structure of European architecture. And behind this lies an effort by Moscow to revise what we might call the post-Cold War settlement of the 1990s, which was imposed at a time, in Moscow's view, of strategic weakness in Russia. And this allowed the West to take advantage of Russia and not take into account its interests. And so what Moscow has seen over the past 2.5 to 3 decades is the extension of Euro-Atlantic institutions eastward to Russia's border. In particular, NATO, an alliance that we need to remember was founded primarily to contain Russia, and also the European Union, which is an organization that dominates the economic structures of Europe and an organization which Russia cannot join. And so this expansion of Euro-Atlantic institutions eastward has had two impacts for Russia. One, you might call the psychological impact. Russia has always thought of itself as a great power, and a great power that acted in Europe. If you think about it, Russia demonstrated its prowess as a great power on the main battlefields of Europe over the past 200 to 300 years, and at the grand diplomatic conferences during that period. And the expansion of Euro-Atlantic institutions has pushed Russia out of NATO and made it less of a factor in European affairs, and therefore diminished Russia as a great power in Russia's own eyes. Second, Russia has seen the expansion, particularly NATO, as a security threat. It has eliminated the strategic buffer, the strategic depth that Moscow has long seen as critical to its own sense of security, a way of preventing its or lessening its vulnerability against invasion from the West, which have happened periodically throughout Russian history. We think about the Napoleonic invasion in the 19th century, the invasion by Hitler's Germany in the 20th. All of this is a long way of saying that even if we resolve the conflict in Ukraine in the near future, that we're still going to have a significant problem with Russia as we try to sort out a way of building European security that makes Russia or satisfies Russia to a minimal extent and makes it less of a threat to destabilize or to try to destabilize the situation in the future. Now, why now? Why now? I think as we try to answer this question, there are three sets of developments that we need to keep in mind. Two, from Moscow's standpoint, reinforce the level of threat that they faced. And the third set of developments created the opportunity. So one set of developments concerns Ukraine itself and domestic politics in Ukraine. Over the past year and a half, the Russian leadership has been concerned about the policies of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. They've seen him move in ways that have limited the activities or the field of endeavor of pro-Russian forces inside Ukraine. Zelensky has gone after some large or big businessmen, oligarchs, who had close ties to Russia. One in particular, a man named Viktor Medvedchuk, who owned a tremendous amount of property in Ukraine, a lot of media outlets, but also importantly, had a very close personal relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Zelensky has also closed down radio and television stations in Ukraine that presented views that were close to those of Moscow. In addition, over the past year and a half, Zelensky made a concerted effort to try to get NATO to move on its promise to bring Ukraine into the organization, a promise that was made way back in 2008 at a NATO summit in Bucharest. And finally, in the past year and a half, Zelensky has set up a platform that is called the Crimean Platform. And what he hoped to do with this was to raise the profile of Crimea as an international issue, to focus attention on Russia's illegal annexation of that peninsula in 2014, and try to put pressure on Russia to return the peninsula to Ukrainian sovereignty. So there was an increased threat from what was happening domestically in Ukraine. Now, the second set of developments concerned the relationship between Ukraine and NATO. In 2020, NATO granted Ukraine what they call an enhanced opportunities partnership. And what this meant was that NATO began to work more closely with Ukraine on a whole range of military and security problems. So you see many NATO countries, with the United States in the lead, provide more training to the Ukrainian military. You've seen the United States and other countries exercise more regularly with Ukrainian forces, not only on the land in Ukraine itself, but also something that has concerned Moscow, much more ambitious naval exercises in the Black Sea. You've also seen the United States conduct more frequent and more ambitious strategic reconnaissance flights in and around Ukraine that peered into Russian territory. So Russia became concerned not so much about Ukraine joining NATO as NATO itself becoming de facto an institution on Ukrainian territory. So that too enhanced the level of threat as far as the Kremlin was concerned. Now for the opportunity. The opportunity came in a number of different ways. First was the election of a new president in the United States, a president who initial comments and documents out of the administration suggested that the United States really wasn't going to focus all that much attention on Russia. What the United States was really concerned about was China as a strategic competitor over the long term. In addition, the chaotic exit of the United States from Afghanistan in August of last year led the Kremlin to, I think, conclude that the United States had little resolve to engage in the types of active military operations or resisting military operations that might, in fact, cause some challenge to America's position in Afghanistan, the Middle East, or indeed in Europe. Second, the Kremlin was also aware that the long-serving German Chancellor Angela Merkel was going to step down, and there was going to be a new government in Germany. That new government, when it actually came into existence in December of last year, was a government of three parties. The first time we had such a coalition government in Germany, but more importantly, was clearly a coalition that wanted to focus on domestic issues, that didn't really want to spend a great deal of time dealing with foreign policy issues. And then finally, we had the issue of France. France, as we know, is facing presidential elections. We're going to have the runoff this weekend, but Moscow calculated back in the fall and early part of this year that the presidential election in France would absorb a great deal of Macron's attention, and therefore France would not be able to devote a great deal of much attention to what was happening in and around Ukraine. You add on top of this the energy crisis that emerged in Europe in the fall of last year, in part because Europeans had not put enough gas into their storage facilities over the summer. Europe remains deeply dependent on Russia for its imported gas. About 40% of the gas used in Europe comes from Russian sources, and therefore the Kremlin figured that it had some leverage over Europe because it could turn on and off the gas spigot to Europe. And this was particularly important during the winter months when gas is an important source of heating. So Moscow had leverage in the energy sector as well. You add to that finally the sense that President Zelensky was not very popular in Ukraine. That's what all the polls showed up until Russia's invasion in February. And on top of that, Russia had gone through a long period of modernizing its military. And Putin had great confidence in the capabilities of its military. It's a military that conducted an almost flawless operation from Moscow's standpoint in taking over Crimea in 2014. It was a military that performed quite ably after Moscow moved into Syria in 2015. And so you took all these things together, an increasing sense of threat from Ukraine, disarray in the West, an unpopular president in Ukraine, and a very capable, highly capable Russian military. And Putin calculated that he would be able to move against Ukraine and achieve his goals in a very, very brief period. The sense that we had in the West, and I think also in Moscow, that this military incursion would be a matter of a week and not longer. The Ukrainian government would be overthrown, replaced by a puppet government, excuse me, loyal to Moscow, and NATO would be driven out of Ukraine for an extended period. Now, all of this turned out to be a gross miscalculation on Putin's part. Ukrainian resistance turned out to be quite stiff. Russian forces moving in were not greeted as liberators, quite the contrary. They were attacked repeatedly and quite effectively over the past, during the first 2-3 weeks of the invasion. The West also rallied much more quickly than Moscow had anticipated, levied a set of sanctions that were quite severe and continued to escalate those sanctions. And there's no evidence of any cracks in Western unity at this point. Moscow in particular must have been surprised about the German reaction. There were indications beforehand that Germany might waver. Quite the contrary. They were among the leaders in levying sanctions against Russia. And indeed, the German government itself, in the initial days after the Russian invasion, announces a significant increase in the money that it was going to spend on its own defense, on its own defense forces, and also agreed to the provision of military equipment to Ukraine, something that they had resisted up until the invasion. So we had a serious set of sanctions. The West also mobilized a significant amount of military aid for Ukraine in an initial period. And again, contrary to Moscow's expectations, the NATO countries handled quite effectively the tremendous flow of refugees out of Ukraine in the first weeks of the conflict. So the Western unity came as a surprise to Putin. And then finally, what must have been the most severe disappointment for Putin is his military did not perform very well. What we saw in the initial weeks of the invasion was the inability to coordinate across multiple fronts, the lack to very poor logistics, the inability to provision the forces, particularly with food and fuel as the invasion proceeded, and also a surprising lack of morale on the part of the individual soldiers on the ground in Ukraine. And this all led to the what we can say is nothing more nothing less than a humiliating defeat for Russia in its effort to seize Kiev in the initial phase of the conflict. Now, all of this has caused, I think, President Putin to step back and reconsider and recalibrate his operations in Kiev, and that leads to where we are in the current period. Moscow has given up its aim of seizing Kiev. It has regrouped its forces and has refocused and focused them on the eastern part of Ukraine, the Donbas region. This makes sense to a certain degree, in part because one of the reasons that Putin gave to the Russian public for his initial move into Ukraine was to defend the independence of these separatist regions in Ukraine against what he has claimed has been a concerted effort by the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian government to engage in what he calls genocide of ethnic Russians and Russian speakers in that part of the world. So the goal of the most recent offensive is to not only support these separatist regions, but to extend their writ across the entire provinces of which they are part, not simply a small territory that they now control. As part of this effort, Russia is trying to build what we call a land bridge from that region in the Donbas to the what is now, in Moscow's view, Russian territory in Crimea, and perhaps even extend this land bridge beyond Crimea, westward through Odessa, over to the border with Moldova, where there is a small, again, separatist region that is loyal to Moscow, in which Russian troops are deployed. What this would do would create a Russian control of the territory across the entire north shore of the Black Sea, depriving Ukraine of any outlets to that body of water, creating Ukraine as a landlocked country. That appears to be Putin's near-term goal. And there is evidence that he would like to make as much progress as possible in the days and weeks up to May 9th. May 9th is the day on which Russia celebrates its victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War. It is a major Russian holiday, and that victory over Nazi Germany is a fundamental element of the legitimacy of the Russian government and of Putin personally. So Putin would like to be able to say that he's had some success, and he'd like to be able to announce that success on May 9th. Now, what we also know is that Russia is going to continue to face stiff resistance from the Ukrainians. They have been preparing for this onslaught for some time now, but we've also seen the West begin to step up the type of aid that they're providing the Ukrainians. Much heavier weaponry, the types of weapon systems that you would need, not to fight an insurgent campaign, as many of us thought would be the case several weeks ago, but a more conventional type of warfare. So we're seeing heavy artillery, more anti-aircraft systems. Some NATO countries are providing armored personnel carriers, tanks, and some perhaps even aircraft. So it's a much more formidable amount of military equipment that should provide Ukraine with better means to meet the conflict or the battle that the Russians are going to lay down at this point. It's anyone's guess as to how this conflict is going to play itself out over the next several weeks. What I think we can say, and here I get to the sort of the future of this conflict, how we need to think about this. I think it's clear that there's not going to be a negotiated solution anytime in the near future. There have been some talks between Ukrainian and Russian delegations, but the types of proposals that the Russians have presented to the Ukrainians are really not a negotiated solution to the conflict. It's really trying to present Ukraine with what we might call the terms of surrender, how Ukraine might capitulate. And Ukraine has no intention of capitulating at this point. Ukraine, in fact, believes that it can achieve a tremendous amount on the battlefield itself, and is not going to negotiate an end to this conflict as long as it thinks that it can win on the battlefield. The same thing is quite true from the Russian standpoint, is that they are certainly not going to cease the military operation with something that is less than victory from their standpoint. They're not going to do this in part because they believe that this is an existential crisis for Russia. That itself may not be true, but what is clear is that this is an existential crisis for Putin personally, that his political future depends to a great degree on his ability to produce some type of success in Ukraine. And it's also we're not going to see a negotiated solution in the near future because the West is prepared to provide Ukraine with the types of resources it needs to continue the conflict. So the question we should be asking ourselves is not so much about how this conflict is going to end over the next several weeks, but what are the risks of escalation? And I think escalation can come in two forms. It can come because Russia appears to be losing on the battlefield. And if that is indeed the case, Moscow will have an incentive to escalate. And there's several ways that they can do that that would pose tremendous problems for the West and the United States in particular. One is the use of chemical weapons, and at the extreme beyond chemical weapons to nuclear weapons, something that Putin has already threatened implicitly in some of his comments over the past several weeks. Russia could also decide to go after the supply chain that is bringing these weapons into Ukraine, something that it has not done in a concerted fashion over the past several weeks. Now, attacking those supply lines inside Ukraine is quite difficult because you're talking about individual trucks traveling at night. It's much easier if you're going to attack the supplies to track them at the transshipment points, which are the areas where these weapons are collected that are located on NATO territory. If Russia goes after those, that is an attack on NATO. It raises the issue of Article 5 guarantees that are important to NATO that would engage us in a direct conflict with Russia. And the third way that the Russians can escalate is through a major cyber attack against the United States, something we had expected in the initial phases of the conflict, but haven't seen so far. There could be a significant attack against the financial sector in the United States. And if such a conflict, I think, would increase the pressure on the administration to respond in a much more forceful fashion than it has up to this point. On the other hand, if Russia appears to be winning and making tremendous progress on the ground, then we and our allies and the Ukrainians would have an incentive to escalate. Remember, the president has framed this conflict as one between freedom and autocracy, democracy and autocracy. He has called Putin a war criminal, has accused him of genocide. It's very hard to see how the United States could allow Putin, in a sense, to win this conflict. And if he appears to be winning, there will be, I think, tremendous pressure in order to increase the level of engagement on the part of the United States, which could go up to boots on the ground, despite the fact that the president has repeatedly ruled that out over the past several months. Finally, there's going to be ripple effects from this conflict, which is going to be a prolonged one. We're already seeing that in increased energy prices in the United States and Europe. Inflation is going to be exacerbated by this conflict in coming weeks and months. We're going to see continued supply chain problems. Energy in particular is going to be an issue for the Europeans, but there are also a number of resources, nickel, palladium, for example, where Russia is a major exporter of those into global markets. Those things are going to be affected by the conflict. And finally, what we're going to see is a continuing shift in sort of the geopolitical context in and around Europe, but globally. Questions about where India is going to end up, what China is going to do. And all of this is going to have an impact on the way the United States thinks about its security, not only in Europe, but the Indo-Pacific region. So to sum up, this conflict is not simply about Ukraine. It is about European security from the Russian standpoint. That is going to be a long-term challenge. There's no near-term reset or significant improvement in relations with Russia, but this is also going to have consequences that spill over into the economy, not only in Russia and in Europe, but globally, and it's also going to begin to reshuffle the geopolitical chessboard. So we're going to face not only a difficult several weeks and several months ahead, but I would argue a very difficult decade because of the challenges that we see unfolding in and around Ukraine because of Russia's actions over the past several weeks. So let me end there.
Thank you, Thomas. We have some, I think, pretty good questions here, if you're willing to take a few.
Absolutely.
And we have a little extra time. I'll just let folks know our speaker from DEI, Viva, our consultant, is just unable to make it today. So we have a little bit of extra time for Thomas here. And let me get my chat up. So Isaac Koss Reed says, scanning the news these days, it's hard to decipher what's real, what's clickbait, what's opportunism, and what's deliberate misinformation. Two-part question. Is Russia going to threaten Poland and keep going, or are they in fact losing and eventually will be pushed back out of Ukraine? And you sort of answered that, but then more broadly, what news source or sources do you trust the most for accurate reporting of Ukraine? I know you know people inside, but we have to read the news.
Both very good questions.
Or listen to the news, I guess.
Yeah, listen to the news. You know, two very good questions. First, you know, as far as Poland is concerned, you know, I think that sort of in the grand scheme of things, if Moscow could wave a magic wand, perhaps it would like that. Poland situated differently, not such an active member of NATO, for example. The same would be true of the Baltic states. I think the reality is that Russia does recognize that they are members of NATO, that there are significant risks that they would run by a direct attack on Poland or the Baltic states, and that has acted as something of a deterrent over the past several years, and I think into the future. Again, if they do go after transshipment places that are located in Poland, they would try to do this in as narrow an area as possible, hoping that that would lead to a lesser NATO response. But in any event, I don't think that you're going to see Russia move against Poland in a major way, or the Baltic states for that matter. You know, news is always a problem here, so I try to read as many different sources as possible. So I do see what's on TV. You know, I read the major newspapers. I think the Wall Street Journal, if I may, I think does very good reporting on the conflict. I think the New York Times as well has provided extensive coverage. You know, I also do try to read what's in the Russian press as well, in order to get a sense of what they're telling their own public, and also get indications of what they're really concerned about. And then take all these things together to try to form some more or less accurate view of what's happening. You know, that said, I also have my contacts in the government that are useful from time to time in helping me understand how the United States sees the picture. And you know, I do believe that by and large, what the U.S. government is saying about the conflict does reflect the reality on the ground. There's a tendency from time to time, perhaps, to exaggerate what the successes are and what the Russians have done. But you know, that said, there's enough pictorial evidence of the atrocities that the Russians have committed over the past couple of weeks or so for us to make, I think, a judgment on our own as to the nature of this conflict.
On that, there's a kind of an interesting extension of that question is Leanne Almeida asks, are the Russian separatists in Ukraine rethinking their position, given the atrocities they're seeing?
I think, you know, the short answer to that is no. You know, they have, I think they're very in tight with the Russians at this, with the Russian state at this point. Their existence depends on Russia, and has over the past 8 years. You know, as much as we can tell from the rudimentary, I think, public opinion polling that can be done in some way in these separatist regions, is that the governments don't enjoy, that these separatist forces don't enjoy that much popular support, that the relationship to Moscow has been critical to maintain themselves. So we've seen no evidence that because of the way that Russia has conducted this military operation, the attacks on civilian infrastructure, the brutal treatment of Ukrainian civilians has in any way caused the separatists to rethink their position or their loyalty to Moscow.
I think David Stein asked this before you talked about it, but I'll ask it again, and maybe you want to say more. But David asks, so what is the end game at this point? Is there a risk Russia could control the seaports? And if so, what would be the result?
The seaports on the
Baltic, yeah.
On the Black Sea. I think that's certainly what Russia's goal is at this point, is to control the northern shore of the Black Sea. Whether they can do that or not is an open question. We've seen how difficult it has been over the past 8 weeks to subdue Mariupol on the Sea of Azov. Tremendous Ukrainian resistance. The Russians had moved against another seaport called Nickolai in the west and hadn't made any progress at all. And of course, there's still Odessa, which Russia really hasn't moved against in any significant way. I think in part because of concern about what the level of resistance would be. So Russia's ability to do that, I think, is an open question at this point. If they did control all those ports, obviously they would control the exports out of that, and I think they would put pressure on the Ukrainians by denying them the ability to export, product through those ports. One of the major products that the Ukrainians do export is grain, for example. So that would have implications that extend well beyond Europe to a number of countries that actually were reliant on Ukrainian grain exports for their own food supply. But it also would increase tensions in the Black Sea overall. The Turks, in particular, would not be happy with a larger Russian presence on the Black Sea. It's been a traditional zone of rivalry between those two countries, and perhaps you have noticed that the Turks have been supplying the Ukrainians with weapons that they need in order to blunt the Russian offensive. So I would imagine that if the Russians did achieve that, you would see some increased tension between Turkey and Russia in the Black Sea in particular, but also elsewhere.
I guess you were thinking along the lines of Leanne Alameda, who was asking about Turkey. So I think you answered that, and I'll get 2 more questions in here real quick, and then we got to get going. So Alex Polson asked, how much has been lost due to the damaged agricultural and industrial output in Ukraine?
I don't think that we have a good figure on that, but certainly a significant portion of Ukrainian output is going to be affected by this conflict. I mean, the areas where Russians are active at this point is the industrial heartland of Ukraine, and so they are doing a tremendous amount of destruction. So we can expect a significant loss in productivity, in production in the east of Ukraine. In addition, the conflict has not had so much impact on the ability of Ukraine to harvest whatever crops may be available at this time, but it is going to impact on sowing and will have a large impact on what Ukraine can harvest come fall. So it will be significant. The destruction it already done will set Ukraine back many, many years. The cost of reconstruction is going to be enormous. And I'm sure there is an expectation in Ukraine, in Washington, and in Brussels that we need to figure out a way to make the Russians pay a substantial part of the cost of rebuilding Ukraine. whenever this conflict does end.
Professor Graham, we really thank you for joining us today. This year, we're highlighting the new Rotary area of focus, the environment. In your honor, we're making a donation to the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, SRAG, towards their focus on biodiversity, sustainable living, pollution, the climate, food systems, and a circular economy. Thank you so much for being a part of our Civic Thursday Club meeting.
Certainly welcome. All the best.
Okay, so a few announcements, folks. This is National Volunteer Week, so it's time to get out, and we're offering you plenty of opportunities. This Saturday, day after tomorrow, is Enterprise Institute. Harold Lowe, we're doing a one-day training for next year's counselors. If you want to contact Harold, if you have time to do that, it's most of the day on Saturday. Also, there's Kinder Prep book packaging. They're getting ready tomorrow, and then the packaging is on Saturday. Contact John Holmgren about that. I think they have enough to get by, but I'm sure they could use some extra hands with that. And this weekend is the district convention. We've talked a lot about it, and it's a great event. So if you have the time, please come to that. On Sunday, you can volunteer to walk, volunteer to get healthy. The Great Trail Walk across Tilden Park, Robert Kidd is chairing that, and that'll be on Sunday morning. And then Kinder Prep comes back. They have a field trip the following week to the Oakland Zoo. We need some volunteers to help kids off the bus and to hand out lunch to them. And that comes back again the following, let's see, what is it? It's the first week, I think the first week of May. We don't have it up there, but the first week of May, Kinder Prep goes to Children's Fairyland. The golf tournament, I think, is sold out. It's been successful. They have 24 playing. We're going to put in the Live Oak, we've been informed that Dr. John Weavers, they're going to have a memorial service for him on April 30th, and we'll get that information to you on that. And Karen Friedman, every week we do food distribution packaging at Laney College. They can always use a few extra hands for that. It's a great volunteer opportunity. Do it once, do it twice, do it every week. A's Baseball, it's still a month or two away. I don't know, I went to opening night the other night, and there's a few seats available at the Coliseum, but we have tickets. It's going to be a great day to watch the Boston Red Sox. That may be a well-attended game, and that's on June 5th, and the New York Yankees are on August 28th. Remember to give blood. And Isaac Kosreed, are you out there? Could you tell us about? I sure am. So we are dark next week, but in 2 weeks, could you tell us about our speaker?
Yes, indeed. Tasneem Raja is the Oakland Side's editor-in-chief. Oakland Side is part of City Side journalism, part of the new wave of journalism, hopefully to help address some of the challenges that I mentioned in my question to our speaker today. How do you get good local news in an era when newspapers are being bought up by larger and larger companies and turned into profit-making machines? And the City Side, which is both the co-creator of the Berkeley Side and now the Oakland Side focused on Oakland, are digital, nonprofit, community-focused papers that will talk to us this coming month about just the new landscape of journalism out there, as well as specifically some of the things that they're doing. So look forward to seeing you all there for that one. And it will be live and in person, which we're very excited about.
Thank you, Isaac. Ed, did we have any bell ringers out there today?
I don't know.
I didn't see any.
Keeping track of that.
Okay, I didn't see any in chat.
Didn't have any.
Okay, folks, there's still a few minutes. I got maybe 1 minute left if you want to buy some tickets for the live, the Best of Live auction, or the Best of Live raffle, and also for the wine auction. Do that in chat or after the meeting. Please get hold of Jesse. and he'll help you buy those tickets. We'll be selling them at the gala as well, but gala is next week. We don't have any more meetings before that. Okay, everyone. Thank you, Davey Warner. Look forward to you joining the club in a couple of weeks, and thank you for the thought for the day. Past district governor, who's always honored at the district convention, and past president Ed Jellen. Robert Kenney, so good to have you with us today. And Sarah, thank you for introducing Robert. Keri, thanks for telling us about the gala. We'll see you all dressed up on Thursday night. Elita, yay! Thanks for getting that villa. We are so, I'm envious. A week in Tuscany, how good does it get? Thomas Graham, thanks for being with us today. David Stein, thanks for introducing Thomas. And thank you, Isaac, for teasing the next speaker. To everybody, our production team today, thank you. Remember, don't keep Rotary a secret, service above self, and this meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland is adjourned.
Dudley, you really want to go?
I sure wish I could.
Why are you laughing? You can't go?
I can't.